It was one of those mornings where the silence of the prairie felt louder than thunder. The sun had just cracked the horizon, spilling gold across the endless fields. John Mercer, a lonely rancher who had long since given up on love and company, stepped out of his cabin with his coffee in hand. His boots crunched on the dry wood of the porch, but what made him freeze wasn't the sound of his own steps, it was what he saw waiting there. 3 young women sat quietly on the edge of his porch, their dresses dusty, their faces worn, and their eyes carrying stories he couldn't yet understand. They were sisters, he could tell by the resemblance, but what startled him most was the youngest, who didn't say a word. Instead, she looked up at him with eyes both fearful and determined, and in an act that broke his heart, she silently offered herself, as if her only worth was her body. John's heart twisted. He set down his coffee slowly, the steam curling into the morning air. "Good Lord," he whispered, more to himself than to them. "What's happened to you girls?" The eldest, a woman maybe in her mid-20s, spoke first. Her voice cracked from thirst, but her tone carried strength. "We walked all night. Our pa, he died 2 days back. Left us with nothin'. We had nowhere else to go." She glanced at her younger sister, who still kept her head bowed, ashamed. She didn't mean to, she just thought maybe it was the only way to earn a meal. John felt a lump form in his throat. This was no ordinary morning. These weren't beggars, nor were they troublemakers. They were survivors, desperate and scared. He crouched down in front of the youngest girl, speaking gently so she'd hear him clear. "Listen to me, child. You don't have to offer yourself for kindness. Not here. Not ever." Her eyes welled with tears, and for the first time, she let out a trembling breath as if she'd been holding it for days. John stood and looked at all 3 of them. Something in him stirred an ache of loneliness that had haunted him for years. He'd lost his wife to illness a decade ago and had no children of his own. His ranch was vast, his home sturdy, but his life had been hollow, filled only with the sound of cattle and wind. Now, here sat 3 souls in need. "Come inside," he said firmly but warmly. "You'll get breakfast, and then we'll figure things out together." The sisters exchanged cautious glances, but hunger won over hesitation. Inside the cabin, John cooked up eggs and bread, pouring warm milk from the morning's churn. They ate like they hadn't eaten in days, and maybe they hadn't. The youngest, still silent, kept stealing looks at John, not out of fear anymore, but as if she couldn't quite believe kindness didn't demand a price. As the days passed, John learned their names. The eldest was Clara, steady and protective. The middle sister, Ruth, had a fire in her eyes, sharp and stubborn, and the youngest, Mary, was the quiet one, the one who had nearly given away what could never be replaced. She rarely spoke, but her silence said more than words ever could. Life on the ranch began to change. Clara helped cook and mend, Ruth took to riding fences and working alongside John with the cattle, and Mary found peace in tending the garden. It was as though the land itself responded to their presence. What once felt like an empty ranch now pulsed with life, laughter, and even song in the evenings. But the real twist came weeks later, when a group of men rode up the dirt road. They were neighbors, rough ranchers from the next county, and word had spread that John was keeping 3 strays. They came sneering, hinting that girls without family didn't deserve a roof unless they earned it. John's jaw tightened as he stepped off his porch, shotgun in hand, though he never raised it. "These women are under my care," he said, his voice firm, carrying across the yard. And anyone thinking they can lay claim to them has to go through me first. The men grumbled, laughed bitterly, but they saw the fire in John's eyes. This wasn't he, the same quiet rancher they knew. This was a man with something worth defending. Eventually, they spat in the dirt and rode off, leaving dust and silence behind. That night, Clara spoke softly by the fire. "You didn't have to do that for us." John shook his head. "I did. Because I know what it's like to lose everything and think nobody cares. But you're safe now. As long as I'm here, you're safe." The youngest, Mary, who had spoken the least, finally broke her silence. She looked at him with tears shimmering in her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, for not taking what I thought I had to give." It was in that moment John realized the true weight of kindness. It wasn't just about feeding the hungry or giving shelter, it was about restoring dignity, about reminding someone that their worth was never tied to desperation. Seasons passed, and the ranch flourished with new hands and new hope. Clara eventually met a schoolteacher in town, Ruth found her own path working with horses, and Mary stayed by John's side, not as a debt to be repaid, but as a daughter he never had. She grew strong, found her voice, and carried herself with pride. John Mercer, once a lonely rancher with nothing but silence for company, found himself surrounded by family not born of blood but bound by compassion. His porch, once empty, now carried the laughter of girls who had found a home. And in the end, the lesson was simple yet profound: true kindness costs nothing, but it changes everything. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give isn't shelter, or food, or protection. It's the reminder that no one's worth is defined by what they can offer, but by who they are.